Hi friends, Mrs. Scott here. I just wanted to take a minute to explain some landscape vocabulary to you right on an actual landscape so that you can hopefully understand it a little bit better. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the horizon line. Now, the horizon line, I've heard two definitions for it, and it kind of makes it a little bit confusing. One is that the horizon line is the point at which the sky comes down, the ground comes up, and they meet. So it's the line in between. However, with a landscape like this, that's a perspective drawing, the horizon line is actually a little bit lower. There's something called in this drawing called a vanishing point. And that vanishing point always falls on the horizon line. So the vanishing point is the point at which all the things look like they're getting so far away from you that they disappear. So in this case, that vanishing point is right about here. That means that the horizon line is here also. So my horizon line for this particular picture is right here. And my vanishing point is right here. Now, if this did not have those mountains in the background, then yes, the horizon line would be the line at which the sky comes down and the ground comes up and they meet each other. But since the horizon line is a little bit lower for this one, those mountains just become part of the background. Now, the second word that I want to explain to you is the foreground. Foreground is the area of the picture that appears the closest to you. So my foreground would be right around here, this area down here at the bottom. The foreground typically falls at the bottom of your page. Your middle ground usually goes in the middle of your page, and your background goes at the top. For my foreground, there's a couple other things and middle ground that I can use to help me identify those areas. One is the shading. So the area that is the closest to you usually has the brightest colors. It is the most clear, whereas the shading gets a little bit more and more fuzzy, blurry as it goes back, and the value gets lighter. So as you can tell, this area up in here, if I were just to make this a pencil drawing, this would be the darkest area. The middle ground would be kind of a middle tone, and then the background back here where the mountains are, that becomes very light. So back here in the background, when things are so far away like these mountains that they become blurry and they kind of lose their color, that effect is called atmospheric perspective. When things get that far away, they're hard to see. Now, something else that you can consider when you're drawing is texture. Texture is the way something feels or looks like it feels. So in the foreground area, I can see the most texture. In the middle ground area, I can see a middle amount of texture. And in the background, I can't see very much at all. So in the foreground here, I can see all this brush, all this texture here. I can see the grass texture. I can see individual rocks. I can see the gravel texture in this area. I can even see the lines in the road from cars driving. I can see a lot of texture. Whereas in the middle ground, okay, there's brush there, but I can't see individual pieces like I can here. I can just see kind of a scrumbly texture. Or with the grass, I can see, okay, it's a different color. It's definitely grass, but really it's this information here that's telling me that this is grass. Can't really just know that that's grass on its own. Then the background, there's really not texture at all. It's too far away for us to really understand any texture in that area. Another thing that I can consider are details. So details and texture kind of go together. In the foreground, I can see the most details. I can see this little mile marker. I can see the lines in the road. Again, I can see individual plants. I can see gravel. I can see individual rocks. I can see a lot more actual individual items. Whereas things get farther away into the middle ground, I have a vague idea of what those details are, but they're not as clear. So I can see, yeah, there's some brush, there's some grass. Yes, there's a road here, but I don't see it as clearly. That gets a little bit more fuzzy. And in the background, all I can really see is the mountain ridge line. And you can see these mountains even get farther away back here in the corner. And I know that because they're getting even lighter. My value is getting even lighter. So I hope that that kind of helps. I've got to review, I've got my horizon line. My horizon line is in the same area as where my vanishing point is. My vanishing point is the point where everything looks like it disappears. I've got my foreground. That's the area that's the closest to me, usually at the bottom of the page. It has the most texture, the most details, and the darkest values. Then my middle ground has a kind of a middle amount of everything. It's in the middle of the page, medium amount of details, medium amount of texture, medium value. And then my background is the top of the page, the area that's the farthest away from me. Very few textures, very few details, very light value. Hope that helps.